Welcome to The Holistic Nurse with your host, Peggy Smith. Peggy will introduce and educate her viewers about the differences between alternative, holistic, and complementary medical therapies. Her goal is to empower the lay medical consumer to learn how to advocate for themselves. So now, please welcome the host of The Holistic Nurse, Peggy Smith.
Good morning. This is Peggy Smith, the Holistic Nurse on the Bold Brave TV network. And today I have an exciting guest. His name is Dr. Bruce Koloski, who is an internationally recognized leader in the field of hypnotherapy, psychology, motivation, personal empowerment, and past life regression techniques. He's founded and directed the nation's largest network of private hypnotherapy clinics specializing in weight loss, smoking cessation, and has created over 70 training and personal development programs for professionals and the general public alike. He's written several Amazon bestsellers, Your Journey Was Never Meant to End, The Case for Reincarnation, and Psych Yourself Slim with Self-Talk Hypnosis, just among some. He has doctorate degrees in counseling, psychology, and clinical hypnotherapy, and he's the co-founder and past president of the American Board of Hypnotherapy and past president of the American Medical Hypnotherapy Association, also a fellow of the National Board of Hypnotic Anesthesiology. So with that mouthful, I'd like to introduce Bruce, and good morning. How are you?
Exceptionally well.
That was a mouthful for me, but I'm honored to have you as a guest. And what do you've got so many specialties. What are we going to be specializing on today? Mostly
I believe today we're going to speak about something that's a bit more esoteric, past life regression, reincarnation and past life regression.
Well, that sounds exciting. You've been in this field for quite some time. How did you first become interested in hypnosis? Was that an offshoot of your psychology background? And why did you specialize in the past life regression?
No, actually, I can backtrack a little. I'm originally from Long Island, New York, and my family were both duck farmers, and we owned an airport on Long Island. And my father was a fighter pilot during the war, stationed with 8th Air Force in England, flew P-51 Mustangs. And he was injured during the war. His engine conked out over the English Channel and went in the drink and ended up on Nazi-occupied beaches in France and was rescued by some French farmers. Afterward, my family opened an airport on Long Island. And my father is one of these self-taught people. He was I would call him a Renaissance man, is what they were known as. And he taught himself hypnosis. He used to use hypnosis to hypnotize his students, because we were a flight instructor after the war, to hypnotize his students to help them pass the FAA flight exam and also the written exam. And I used to watch him do it. I used to get a kick out of that. Then I would run around hypnotizing all my little cousins. I was 5 or 6 years old. And so I was rummaging through the attic one day where he had all his books about hypnosis. And I came across a book called The Search for Bridie Murphy. And that is a seminal book in the field of reincarnation and hypnotic past life regression. It was written in the early 50s. And an amateur hypnotist by the name of Maury Bernstein hypnotized a young lady called Virginia Teague. And she talked about a life she purportedly lived in County Cork, Ireland. And her name then was Bridie Murphy, and she came up with a lot of interesting and verifiable facts. Well, I was leafing through this. I was several years older at the time and looking at it, and I couldn't understand it. I asked my father what it was, and he explained to me what the concept of reincarnation. And he himself believed that he was reincarnated. He was also a fighter pilot during the First World War, who was a tad more unlucky then because he got shot down, went down in flames over France. The Red Baron who shot him down, we don't know. But then, interesting is that he also went down in the Second World War, but he lived to tell the tale after that. So that's how I became interested in it. And I did both. I still do both. I did hypnotherapy and past life regression. But I always found the concept of reincarnation and past life regression very satisfying to work with. So that's what I'm doing more these days than in hypnotherapy, although I do both.
Do you find that it's more socially acceptable now? The society is more amenable to considering this? I mean, back in the 50s, 60s, I
Absolutely.
would imagine there were a lot of resistance to that.
The research for Bridie Murphy was vilified back in the 50s, and it was at the hands of the Hearst newspapers. Now, William Randolph Hearst was a devout Catholic, and so he attempted to squash anything that had to do with reincarnation and past life regression. So he got some psychologists to debunk it, and then a few years later, the debunking was debunked. And so where it stands now is, I guess, is probably a pretty credible story. But it is more acceptable these days, thanks in part to people like Oprah Winfrey, who's featured it on her show a couple of times. Katie Couric featured it in one of her shows. I think it was on NBC, where she interviewed a hard-boiled police detective, criminal homicide detective. I think it was from Indianapolis. It was Robert Snow, and he told the story about on a lark. He was at a party, and somebody there was doing past life regression, and he said, "I'll try it." And so he talked about a life he lived as an artist in the 1800s New York City. And he says, "This is ridiculous. I'm gonna prove that this is all wrong." So he applied his skills as a homicide detective to investigate this purported past life regression or past life that he lived, and all he could find was corroboration. Every place he turned, all the facts he looked up corroborated the fact that he was indeed at one point this artist in New York City. And now, so it's in the mainstream. Shirley MacLaine has written a couple of books about that, and everybody loves Shirley. So it's much more accepted these days. And an interesting fact is about well over 30% of the people in the United States do believe in reincarnation, and it approaches about 50% belief worldwide, because of course you have the countries which are predominantly Hindu and Buddhist.
Right. I mean, my specialty in nursing is hospice. And so as I get to people, in that final chapter, the subject often comes up, um, and there's the belief by some that you better get it right, this or earth, this life, because otherwise you got to keep coming back and doing it over and over. And, if you're not happy with what you're doing now, get it right now so you don't have to repeat it next time. And your father being a pilot in both lives, that's interesting.
Yeah, so I don't know. Maybe the next one is as a starfighter pilot for him. We'll find out.
So I know when I was growing up, Amelia Earhart was one of my heroes, and now they found her airplane
Well,
supposedly, and
that was just well, they find her airplane every couple of years. So supposedly this time they did. Yes, we'll see.
yeah, a lot of interesting things. So can you explain exactly what you mean by past life regression? I noticed from your website that you have two different types sort of listed there.
Uh, there's
Um,
there's four types of I delineate four types of past life regression. So you know, past life regression is using hypnosis techniques, to regress a person to a lifetime that they purportedly lived prior to this one. The theory is that we live many, 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 many lives. Some say hundreds, others say thousands. If you consider the fact that our soul, our spirit, is most likely pure energy and was most likely created at the time of the Big Bang, that goes back a few years, about 14 billion years. So I think it's safe to say that all of us here have lived at least once in that time, and we come around again and again. Some would say to learn, others would say to experience the life and what all has to offer. And at different times, at different lifetimes, we have been different things. You remember that song, That's Life by Frank Sinatra? There's a
right.
line in that song which I love. I've been a puppet, a pauper, a pirate, a poet, a pawn, and a king. I've been up and down and over and out, and I know one thing. And maybe the one thing that old Blue Eyes wanted to tell us, well, they didn't realize it, was that we are and have been all of these things at various times in our lifetimes. We've been good, we've been bad, we've been evil, we've been a saint, we've been a sinner.
Well, many people would say you can do all those things in one lifetime too.
Ah, many, many do say that. No, we won't mention any names though.
Yeah, I was reading some of your Facebook posts. Yes.
Yeah.
Um, so, what in your own, like, I assume you've experienced this yourself. Did you have another practitioner do this for you, or did you do this
I,
yourself?
I had another practitioner do that. I'm a terrible self-hypnotic subject. I am. Because I learned it too early. I've been hypnotizing people for 50 years, and I'm too clinical. I'm too rational, and if I try to do it myself, I start critiquing my own techniques, and that's the worst thing to do because you have to be focused on what you're doing. So I start thinking, "Why'd you say that, Bruce? That was a dumb thing to say. You should have said this." And of course, then I lose it. So I need another practitioner to do that, and I have.
Oh, okay. We have. Let's see. Well, when you're, how far back or how many? What's the furthest one of your uh, clients has gone back in your experience, your practice?
The furthest I've had anybody go back that in my memory now is around to ancient Greece and ancient Rome. It was around the time of the birth. If I could date it, it would be around the time of the birth of Christ.
Okay, and would that be successive lives or there's time
Oh,
spaces?
you asked me how long have I how far back have one of my clients gone, and that is the furthest that I remember around around the birth of Christ. Although they can go back much further than that.
This you've got a fascinating career. I would, I mean, I would be keeping journals, and there's so much that you can learn from this.
No,
Um,
indeed.
Not making any assumptions of it. I mean, people do come to you with their backgrounds, especially the religious influences and stuff. Uh, I'm guessing you're either Catholic or Jewish with your last name. What
Oh
would
no,
your
I'm
background affected?
Catholic. My ancestry is Polish and Italian, like so many people are in New York or in the East Coast.
Well,
Polish
you
Italian,
got the Irish over there too. Um,
Irish are there too. Right?
so, when you're looking for, well, let's talk about like the false memory syndrome that comes up in psychology, and with the past regression. How do you respond to that when research shows, I think, accepted research, that the human mind wants to please, and
Indeed, you're right. Yeah,
so if you're looking for something like that, you're trying to please yourself. How do you know that what you really are finding is what you have?
well, because the proof is in the pudding. Yes, there's something called confabulation, which is unintentional fabrication of facts and figures. And it's also a phenomenon known as cryptoamnesia, or some pronounce it cryptomnesia, where you remember things, but you forget where you remember them from. So you make up a story. Now, yeah, that is all well and good, but and that may explain some, if not many, of the stories that you'll hear in reincarnation. But it's when you're able to go back and verify these facts and figures and dates and names and the street where they lived and the historical events that were taking place at that time. Years ago, when I first started doing past life regressions, it's probably I did it. I think my first one I did was with my cousin. I was about 18 years older, so I didn't know what I was doing. I read some books on it. We were sitting around having a cup of coffee, and I said, "You want to give it a shot?" She said, "Sure." And I guess what they were saying, God protects drunks and fools. Well, I didn't know what I was doing, but everything turned out pretty good. And so I've been doing it since then. But it's when you can go back and take a person back and they get things that are verifiable. Back then, when I first started doing it, to verify anything, to research it, you had to go to the library and sit there for how many hours or days. Now, I have people, clients, who right after the session, not right after, maybe 10, 15 minutes later, I'm getting messages from them on, look, I just researched this. Yes, this did happen. Yes, there was this person. Yes, there was this particular town. And they would have had no other way of knowing that.
Yeah, I guess I know. I was actually adopted at an older age, but it took me a while. In the early family computer days, I with Prodigy, I found my birth family, and it, and that led to me to want to look into something like past life regression. But I was in a different background completely for college, and it wasn't in a helping profession. So when you're in that kind of, in fact, I was a research chemist in Southern California. So, uh, your mind is more focused, and, but I find with my clients in hypnosis, the ones that say that they don't think they can be hypnotized are the easiest to hypnotize. And that's what I thought of when you said that you're not good.
Yeah, yeah. As long as you're able to separate that conscious mind and not be too critical of what's taking place during the session, everybody can be hypnotized. There's no such thing as not being able to be hypnotized, uh, because people don't understand what hypnosis is. They think that it's what they see on the stage, where the stage hypnotist gets people up on stage and has them quack like a duck or bark like a dog, cluck like a chicken. Well, yeah, that's hypnosis, but they have to realize that all those people who got up on stage volunteered. Did they not? The hypnotist didn't go out in the audience and get up here and drag them by the ear. He asked for volunteers. They said, take me, take me. So what does that tell you? They're there to have a good time. They're willing to go and do what the hypnotist asked them to do. Plus, if it's in a nightclub, they're usually three sheets to the wind anyway. So they're usually the type of person who at a party, remember the old days, they would say they put a lampshade on their head and dance around the room. So,
Yeah, I
yeah.
went to at a NGH convention years ago. I was one of those skeptics, oh yeah, I'm going to get up on the stage and prove. I wanted to prove them wrong. You can't make me do anything. And I didn't quack like a duck, but I did do things that I would never do in public. And it was a good learning experience for me because uh, I took it a lot more seriously about what was possible. And lots of times, if I'm putting an IV in someone and they're petrified of needles, I don't say I'm hypnotizing you, but I just by me controlling my breath and talking softer, like that, I'm hypnotizing them, and I get my IV in.
You
Um,
are, yes. A matter of fact, I wrote a training manual on that too, with on medical hypnotherapy, and one of the things I covered in there was using hypnosis for IVs and for shots. Yeah, but
it's
yeah,
actually, for
what
25 years, it's actually helped me very much because I'd have somebody with tattoos from their head all the way down telling me they're phobic of needles, and it's like, okay, what were you smoking when you did this? But
yeah,
after
that's a,
45 years as a nurse, you
I
look at life
understand.
as it is. Um, so when it says one of your questions, we were going to talk about, can you go forward in your life and see what your next life is going to be?
That's interesting. That's called progression, a future life progression as opposed to regression. Years ago, I used to do past life seminars. Run down the newspaper, rent a hotel room and do them. And I always featured a progression. Those were the toughest to do because people would get a lot of information on the past life regressions. Most of them would get very little information on the progression. And I thought about that. I don't do them anymore. I mean, I will if someone asks me to do that on Friday. But I thought about that, and you find that they are so varied. One will see themselves in a utopic existence, on the space stations, on Shangri-La type of setting, and others it'll be like what was the movie, the Mad Max. the apocalyptic world. So I started to think about this and do some research. What I think happens when you do a future life progression is that you enter into the world of probabilities, and what you're seeing is I don't think you're seeing a future life. I think you're seeing a probability, a potential, and those people may also be going into the realm of parallel universes or alternate realities, which
So
is
quantum physics principles really plays a big part in the
indeed
whole.
quantum physics. It is theorized that that parallel universes, they call it the multiverse, that it exists. There are lifetimes in which Elvis never died, and whatever, and Elon Musk is waiting tables on some greasy spoon somewhere, but where things are basically different than they are here. Not totally different, but there are some similarities, and that's a fascinating field.
In addition to hypnosis, I practice a few of the energy modalities, NMT, Reiki, things like that. And sometimes with my hospice patients, I've had the experience, perhaps the dying person was waiting for somebody to come say goodbye. Um, and I've it's a lengthy dying process, and I'm trying to keep them comfortable with Reiki and awake and alert so they're there when the person arrives. And I have experienced other family members from the past like standing above the bed, to such clarity that I could see what they were wearing. I was doing Reiki on this one patient, and the family was with me. And afterwards, I saw a man dressed like in a old fashioned golf cap with the short shorts and the plaid, the crazy clothes from that era. And when the family went away, one daughter said, "Was somebody else in the room with us?" And I didn't usually share with my patients what I was experiencing, but I asked her why she asked, and she said, "Because when I felt somebody there, I looked at you, and you were looking off away from my grandmother towards the windows if you were talking to someone." And in
Hmm.
fact, when I saw the person, I had said, "Did you come to take her?" He said, "Not yet." And I said, "Well, is she comfortable?" And he said, "Yes, thank you." And I said, "Are you coming back soon?" Because we had been like, this was like a 3-week process. Every night we thought it was the night. And when I described to the granddaughter, what he was wearing, he said, "That was my grandmother's first husband. We have pictures of him in the clothes that you described."
Wow.
Um, and I've had that kind of experience often. Um, what about crossing? Does everybody come back as another human, or can you come back as? I often joke that I'm going to come back as a dog, because I rescue special needs dogs, and they have a pretty good life.
Yeah, exactly. And I tell people when I come back, I want to come back as my mother's dog because she babied those things. They live the old term, the life of Riley. That's how her dogs used to live. So, so anyway, no, I don't believe that. Some people call it transmigration. I believe that is species to species. A human comes back as a human. A dog comes back as
And
reincarnates
the
as a dog.
dogs do come back in our lifetime. I have experienced that, where a dog I had 40 years ago comes back and has the same mannerisms, has the same favorite toys of
Yep.
the dog that left. So
Yep.
that's kind of
Yep.
validation that there's a lot we don't know about.
I
Um,
I swear I've got a Shih Tzu that we got about a year ago, and we lost a couple of them about in 2014, and I swear that little guy came back to me. He's
yeah,
eerie, eerie. He's just as annoying as the other one was.
well,
He's
it's a
perfect.
Shih Tzu, that's why. Um, I
Beyond
have a T-shirt. I
wonderful.
have a T-shirt. It says "I shit you not," and it's a dog. The Shih Tzu thing, but they are very stubborn. I've had quite a few in my brews over the years.
They
Um,
dance to their own drummer. Okay,
Now,
but no,
because you're a licensed psychologist, I know with nursing, everything I do on the alternative realm is my medical license supersede. I can't cross practice something that I'm not licensed to do. And, I'm very careful about those boundaries. I would imagine, psychology boards are very particular about lines that you could cross, especially in the early days.
Yes, yes, it is. It's called scope of practice. It's a
Yeah.
lot more liberal now than it was. But that goes with anything, whether you're licensed, whether you're unlicensed, whatever for practitioners. If you don't feel that you can handle it, you don't have the expertise to handle it, then you shouldn't be working on it. What's the old saying? When in doubt, refer it out.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, especially with well, how about the PTSD clients or DID, the dissociative identity disorder? If you're doing a past life regression with that kind of client, is that a safe thing to do?
I don't. It isn't, and I don't like to do that. So I question them extensively before that because you know theoretically, I've never seen this happen, but I wouldn't want to take the chance. Hypnosis cannot cause a psychosis, but it can, in some people who are predisposed to psychosis, it can throw them into a psychotic state, or they're already psychotic, even if they're under medication. So
Right.
I'm very careful with who I work with.
Yeah, in my practices, in the pre-interview, if I always ask if they're under any kind of mental health provider's treatment, and
Absolutely.
I won't take them unless I have the permission of their medical provider that's providing that treatment, because
Hmm.
I don't want to undermine whatever the psychiatrist is doing or in any
Absolutely.
way cause a reaction or something.
Oh yes.
But I know I've been criticized for that, that that's not necessary, but that's just a boundary that I had to set for my comfort.
Hmm.
Um, so that gets the next question: what precautions do you take? I guess your initial history to ensure the emotional and psychological well-being of your clients before and after.
I always do. I want I seek to studiously avoid an abreaction. You know what an abreaction is. The people out
Right.
there watching may not know. It's simply a contraction of two words, abnormal and reaction. Is it an abnormal in the field of hypnotherapy? Abnormal reaction to hypnosis. I want the people to have pleasant experiences. So I use safeguards. I call them safeguards. When I teach students how to do what I do. I teach them to incorporate safeguards. For instance, only take them. You do not take them back to any upsetting past lives or that they're not ready to experience. Let me predicate that they're not ready to experience. That their higher self feels they are not ready to experience. I will use safeguards when I take them through the death experience too, and I'll use certain safeguards like if you don't wish to experience, you can always you will choose not to experience, and you will observe it as if you were a dispassionate observer, not necessarily feeling the emotions like you're watching it on TV. And so I do build in a great many safeguards
Oh,
when I do this.
okay. At that, we're going to take a break. I'm not real good at remembering my commercials, but we have a sponsor break right now, and we'll see you in a couple minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness: Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. Master of words, powerful player. What life-changing words can Dr. Janet Smith Warfield pull out of her magical toolbox that just might mysteriously open a door you never knew was there? A door to free yourself from fear forever.
Transform your rage into right action. Release your guilt. Position you into a life of freedom, purpose, passion, power, and peace. All quite suddenly, unexpectedly, and almost miraculously, with no effort on your part. Join Dr. Janet every Monday at noon Eastern on Dancing with Words, Dancing with Wisdom on the BBM Global Network as she and her guests show you how words map our experiences, immersing you in a sound bath that relaxes your muscles, opens your mind, and supports you in co-creating your extraordinary life.
Hi, this is Peggy Smith, the holistic nurse, and I'm with Dr. Bruce Kolaski today. He is a internationally known hypnotherapist and a past regression specialist, which is what our show is featuring today. And we were talking before about the different types of past life regressions. You said there were 4 of them. Can you elaborate on that all?
Yeah, we got sidetracked. Let me break them down. The first one I call it my Joe Friday session. Okay. Some of you out there may be of a certain age that you remember a crime drama called Dragnet. Remember
Oh, I
Dragnet?
remember.
Oh, of course. And the main character was Joe Friday, played by Jack Webb. And he had a catchphrase. Do you remember what it was, Peggy?
No, that I don't remember.
Just the facts, ma'am. Just the facts.
Oh, I do remember that. Okay, yes.
Like this is my Joe Friday session, but for people who don't know who Joe Friday was, or I call it my informational session. And this is a type of regression that takes them back to a past life, and we focus more on details. In other words, who was I? Where was I? When was I? What did I do? How did I live? What kind of job did I have? What kind of career did I have? What was going on at the time? When I traveled, how did I travel? Did I travel by train, boat, automobile, plane, whatever? So we're looking at just details. We don't get too many connections between lives. That's not the purpose of this. The purpose of this is to keep is to is people like this are the people that need to know. They have inquiring minds. So they're the people who will want to take that information, cold, hard, dry facts, and research it. Go on and Google these things. What did it indeed happen? And the second type, I call karmic connection. This takes a person back to the lifetime that they are most connected to, or is most responsible for whatever happens to be going on at this particular time in their life. Now, we look at things like relatives, their soul group. You know, the theory is that we all have a soul group. This is a group of souls that we travel with from lifetime to lifetime, for certain experiences or to learn something. But the connection is not always one-to-one. In other words, your husband or your wife in this life may have been your daughter, or the roles may have been reversed in other lives. So it could have been your mother-in-law. But we do look at things like connections between people, between likes and dislikes, hobbies, sports, things that they did, and how that is relevant to whatever is going on in their life at this time. Doesn't mean that you're always going to go back to the lifetime directly preceding this. Theoretically, has been researched. One of the seminal researchers in this field was a psychologist from up in Northern California, Helen Wambach. She wrote some marvelous books, did some great work, and she found that, according to her research, there's about 60 to 80 years between lifetimes, Earth years between lifetimes. So, but a person in the karmic connection may go back several hundred years, because that's the lifetime that is somehow impinging upon this particular life, the energy of that lifetime. So we go ahead and look at that and look at the connections, karmic connections. The third type is a between lives regression. This is fascinating. This we start by taking them back to the lifetime directly prior to this one. We do a brief overview of that because that's not really our purpose to explore that lifetime, but it mainly serves as a segue into the between lives period, which means going through their death in that lifetime and then going through what activities take place in the between lives state. So we take them, they get to meet their spirit guide. This soul group again, those people who we reincarnate with, they get to experience planning, pre-planning this particular life. I like to say it's like a bunch of you and your friends get together at Starbucks and say, "What do you want to do next weekend?" Well, I want to go kayaking. Yeah, you know what? I think I know what I want to do. So I want to take a trip there, and you make plans on what you're going to do and how you both are going to, how you all are going to interact. So you experience yourself planning, and we look for the reasons why. Why you plan to do this particular thing. You go before what's called the Council of Elders. This is a group of advanced beings, entities, souls don't reincarnate anymore. They've been there, done that, got the T-shirt. They don't have to anymore. I equate it to a kind of a corporate structure. There's the chairman of the board, for want of a better term, we'll call him God. Then beneath that, you have your board of directors, and they fulfill a function. There's other boards beneath that. So in the hierarchy of things, the Council of Elders, also called Ascended Masters, are pretty pretty much higher than we are. They're higher than our soul guides or spirit guides are. And they also help us from lifetime to lifetime. They're the ones who are responsible for our life reviews in between lives. What could we have done better? What did you do good? What do you want to work on the next lifetime? So I take them before the Council of Elders. They get to ask them, the Council of Elders, several questions. Most people like to know, why am I here? What's my purpose? What's it all about, Alfie? They get to ask them that, and they get to experience their birth into this life. And then the fourth type is past life regression. That is using past life regression to help a person resolve certain issues in this time. It's used for fears and phobias. People have fears of like heights and water. It can be used for relationships. Lately, I've been working on people who complain about not being able to attract other people or repelling other people from their life, not being able to sustain a relationship. Why? So we can look at that through past life regression. Certain types of pain, usually psychosomatic pain, that doctors have not been able to find a cause for. Addictions. Just worked with a fellow who was liked his wine a little bit too much. Don't know if he was an alcoholic, but he liked it a little bit too much. He wanted to find out why. So he went back to a lifetime, I think it was in the 1700s in Wales, where he was every day. He never drank water. He drank mead. I didn't know what mead was. I think mead is a mixture of wine and honey. And so we found out why he was not a very happy person at that time. So that's past life regression used for therapeutic purposes. Great thing about this, you don't even have to believe in a reincarnation to be helped by this. You could look at it as stories that you made up for yourself. Well, like in a psychological technique of psychodrama, where a person pretends to be somebody to resolve a particular problem. So, to my mind, it doesn't matter whether it was true or not, whether that past life was true or not. If it can be used to help a person in this life, that's all that counts.
That kind of brings us into the cultural influences of your clients. There's somebody in a more puritanical religion, might find this, or uh, like the Pentecostal, somebody that's very uh, conservative, and their backgrounds. Um, it almost introduces a conflict sometimes, like I'm. It's not okay for me to be even doing this because I'm going to go to hell or something.
Yeah.
In fact, I lived in South Carolina for a while, and I had suggested for pain management a person, and she goes, "Honey, you're in South Carolina." She
The Bible.
said, "Yeah, the Bible Belt," and she said, that's the work. That's considered the work of the devil, and then I looked it up in the whole directory. There was only like 10 hypnotists in the whole state at the time. Um, you know, so do you find that the cultural influences impede the progress, or do you find those clients might not even come to you to begin with that would have those issues?
As I said, past life regression is more and more accepted. What we do find, though, and this is interesting, of the cultural, particularly religious influences, is that usually, and in a between lives regression, see, between lives is more or less a facilitated NDE, or near-death experience. Our viewers who don't know what NDE means. And that's another fascinating topic, is NDEs. But these people, they will say that, who's greeting you when you pass over? Jesus. I get that. And usually these people are conservative Christians. Or you will, if the Muslims will see Muhammad when they cross over, they will be met by Muhammad. If you work with someone who is Shinto or Buddhist, then they'll meet their particular avatars, like Buddha or
Right.
the other ones. Yeah. So I think what we're seeing there is that souls have the ability to create their own experiences. If you expect to see Jesus, then you probably will. If you expect to be met by Marilyn Monroe on the other side, then you probably will.
Okay, a lot of times when, people, especially as they're approaching that chapter and the discussion of heaven and hell comes up, from their backgrounds, and, you don't want to like be morbid until, everything is over. I usually just say, well, my understanding is we're in hell now, and, anything afterwards will be much better. Uh, that's kind of my pragmatic outlook towards that.
It's
But I
interesting
know,
about that. I think that if I remember correctly, I think only 2 to 3% of near-death experiences actually mentioned hell. I don't know if
okay, I
you
think I've read that.
yeah,
Yeah.
actually having experienced hell. So
Yeah, that's interesting. And I thought about when you started the show about the near-death experiences, and the little boy that came back and said he saw his grandparents and described everything in detail. And there's a lot more of that now, because you're not considered crazy if you come back and say, like people that have experienced CPR, coded in the hospital, and we bring them back. Um,
yeah,
you know, they,
they report conversations that took place while they were supposedly dead, quote unquote. Uh, Many times these conversations aren't even taking place in that particular room, operating room, or whatsoever. It may be a conversation that family members are having in another room, several hundred feet away. There was one case where the person reported an NDE, and he said during the NDE he floated out of his body, as they always do. They look down. He floated up above the building. He looked down, saw a sneaker on the roof. He came back and told them, there's a sneaker up there on the roof. They went and looked, and there was a sneaker on the roof. He said, was he making it up? Did before he go into the hospital say, I think I'm going to drop dead on the operating table, so we're going to have some fun here, and I'm going to go up there beforehand and throw a sneaker on the roof? I doubt it.
Yeah, well, no, I've you had a lot of people report things like that.
Hmm.
Um, so how many sessions usually does this whole process take? Because you have to have that introductory session, I guess, make sure the client is good, safe.
Exactly. I do things a lot differently than others. So I always have a consultation. Of course, we work a little differently now that all of my work is done online. When COVID hit, like everybody else, I had the physical office. When COVID hit, I had to close it because of lockdown. And then I started working more online. I found out, hey, I like this. So now that's all that I do. Why should I commit to the cost of an office? So in that case, now the way I do, I always offer a free consultation to see if we're a fit, to find out what do you to explain. I go over the different types of past life regression. Which would you think fits you? Then, if they agree that this is for them, then I book them into the program itself, which is now a 2-session program. My first session is a clinical interview where we go more into depth upon what they are looking to, what are they looking to get from this? Why are they doing this? I put them through some testing that I devised and used to use. Started this in 1985 with my weight loss and smoking cessation clients, and then I found that it fits perfectly with the past life regression clients, because as I tell them, as a hypnotherapist, the only tool I have at my disposal is my voice and the words that I speak to you. I'm not a plumber. I don't use a wrench. Not a carpenter. I don't use a saw. So my words. And so I look at things like hemispheric brain dominance, of the left brain, right brain, from an neuro-linguistic programming sense, are they visual, auditory, kinesthetic? That comes into play of how I'm going to phrase what I say to them. And also I have one test that looks at the 21 different ways that they may spontaneously experience a past life. And they get to tick these off. So I can show them, hey, look, you already have experienced a past life. You already have knowledge of a past life. How much more effective is it going to be now under hypnosis? We talk about the deja vu, being drawn to historical times and periods, having an affinity and a resonance with them. So I do that and I assess those, and then we, on the second session, we do the actual past life regression, or between lives regression, whichever it is they want to do.
Okay.
So like I don't just say, hi, hello, sit down, shut up, close your eyes and listen to me. A lot of planning goes into this. One size does not fit all, at least the way I do.
And well, that works with anything really. And I never believed that there were any coincidences in life. There are times that maybe I'll go see a patient that I didn't know before, and they just asked me to fill in, and then I get there and discover I know why I'm here, because they have needs that that only I know with my background, and gave them resources and things, and and I find with the hypnosis clients too, there's very rarely coincidences. Like they could go to any hypnotist, but a lot of people will come to me because I'm a nurse. I'm doing this show because having the white jacket and being a nurse somehow gives more validity to some of the holistic things that I'm, talking about and teaching. And being a nurse actually makes me a teacher, just by virtue of that. Um, so if somebody's extremely fearful or anxious, would you just, and you could sense that, maybe they need to work on the anxiety issues before they even try something like that. Do you incorporate that, or do you just say, I don't think you're ready?
No, because here's why. I'm assuming you mean fearful or anxious of the process itself.
Right.
That's why I don't rush into it. That's why there's always a free consultation, and then there's also the clinical interview where I'm thoroughly explaining what we're going to do. I lay it out step by step. I want no surprises. We talk what hypnosis is, what it isn't. Most of the people these days are familiar with hypnosis, not like it used to be. And so that allays their fear and anxiety, and it also builds the most important thing that a therapist and a client or patient can have, is rapport. So once you build that rapport, anxiety just goes out the window. They don't need it. Plus the techniques that I'm using is, what I'm talking about, other people may not. I use a progressive relaxation technique in my hypnotic induction, which by virtue of what it is, it does relax people and releases them from the anxiety. So that's not a factor. At least by the time we get to the regression, it's not a factor.
So when you what advice would you give to somebody who's considering doing this then?
Look at make sure that person offers the consultation, a free consultation first, so that you'll find out if they are a fit and if you click with that person and if what they're saying to you makes sense. That's the most important thing right there. And also look at their experience, but there are some people who are doing this for years and they're not doing it very well. But it usually gives you an indication if they've been in this field for any length of time and they've been able to stick around. There's probably a reason why they've been able to stick around because they know what they're doing.
Okay, that makes sense. So you also offer training, I saw on the website, for people that would want to be
I
a
do offer training. I offer one-to-one training online. I am, as we speak, I'm at work creating I think they call it Evergreen, an online on-demand program that they'll be able to learn by watching. It'll be probably right now, it looks like it's going to be about 22 modules, which would be video modules, five audios, and a whole bunch of ancillary material like manuals and whatnot that will train them to do what I do. And they'll get a very solid grounding in hypnosis, almost turning them into hypnotherapist, above and beyond being past life regression therapist, because I feel you have to know a lot about that and the backgrounds of these things. So that's coming, and I hope in March. But you know Murphy's Law. Everything takes longer than you think it's going to take.
right. Yeah.
I think I can do it by March. But that'll open it up to a lot more people. It'll make it much more affordable, and they'll have me as a mentor for a year. That'll be part of it. They'll need
That's great.
somebody to.
Do you ever have people that want to be a past life regression therapist, but they're not already hypnotherapists, or
Oh, yes. That's why this training that I'm designing gives you a thorough background and training in also hypnosis.
okay. A lot of times when I encounter somebody who's totally unfamiliar with hypnosis and very skeptical and somewhat fearful, they still think it's mind control, and they're afraid that I'm going to make them cluck like a chicken or whatever, different, I make them do things. And I basically have to explain that I teach self hypnosis more than anything else, and that these are tools that they can take in any part of their life, or any situation that they have to deal with, and alleviates the fear with that. But they still sometimes, um, like, they love the relaxation part of it when they're experiencing that, but they feel like I guess it's the cultural influence. They're somebody in their background is telling them, this is not okay. And um,
If someone's
yeah,
going to control your mind, then you teach by example, by analogy. One thing that I used to do when I had the physical offices, to show that they will not do anything that they don't want to do. As we're sitting down at the desk, I said, "Excuse me, I'll drop my pen or my pencil." I said, "Would you pick that up for me?" "Oh, okay." Pick it up. Would you go stand in the corner on your head? What? Get up, go into the corner, stand on your head. Why? What do you mean? I said, you didn't do it. I asked you to pick up the pen for me, and you did. I asked you to stand on your head in the corner. You didn't do it. Why? Because I didn't want to. Exactly like that. In hypnosis, would you say no just as fast? Just as fast. So you'll not do anything that is against your particular. So I use humor and I use examples. And then think about this.
I think I'm actually a hospital clown, and I think humor is a large part of what you,
Uh,
you know you it gets you through some rough times. And
then, of course, you tell them about you relate hypnosis as that's something we experience each and every day. Did you ever go to
TV
the
commercials. I mean, the news channels. They're hypnotizing us constantly. Yeah.
Yeah, I watched the movie. Remember the movie, the Dog's Purpose? Is that it? About the
Yes.
dog. So,
Yeah.
so I can use this in all. If you're my age, you talk about Old Yeller, right? When I was a kid, so Old Yeller, I cried my eyes out at the end. Why was I crying? I know that dog didn't die at the end of the movie. He went home, went in the limousine, and had his Alpo. But the movie made it real to me. It involved me in that's hypnosis. That's hypnosis, pure and simple.
Yeah. Well, years ago, I guess I was still in college in Southern California. There was a movie. I don't remember the exact name, but the character was Peter Proud, and apparently
That's the reincarnation of Peter Proud. I forgot about
that was it, right. And that movie really it frightened me, but it stuck in my brain for years. Like, when I would have weird experiences, I would see different scenes in that movie,
Yeah.
and that was at a time in my life when I actually had lost the first child that I was carrying full term. I was adopted, so I knew nothing about my medical history, and I had all kinds of, after seeing that movie, something happened in my past life that's doing this, um, and I knew there were connections, but I didn't know.
That's right. That was one of the first movies about reincarnation. Actually,
Right.
they did make a movie out of The Search for Bridie Murphy too, which
Okay.
most people realize it was
Yeah,
in
I
19.
think that must have been like probably 75, 76 when I saw the reincarnation of Peter Pan.
Yeah, I think it was in the 70s, right?
And
And
it affected me. I don't think in a positive way, but something that I thought over a lot about over the 20 years after I had seen it. Um,
also with Barbara Streisand and Yves Montand on a clear day. That's about
right.
reincarnation.
So, um, okay, we're going to be taking a break again in a few minutes. In the for the end part closing, maybe you could talk a little bit more about, what else you do, or how, like, are you almost retired, or are you just, you're still
No,
working more than,
yeah, no, I'm not retired. No, I still work, still put in full days because I love it.
so,
I love doing so much.
so it's really exciting. I think virtual has really helped all of us, and it's even helped people that would be afraid to come to a hypnotherapist,
Hmm.
because it feels safer if they're in their house and you're over here.
And I found it to be more effective because they are in a safe environment already. The comfort and safety and security of their own home.
So, okay. We have about 2 minutes left before we're going to be wrapping up. Actually, I think we have had an altered thing. So, what is the best way to for people to reach you? Your
Two ways.
website is Koloski.com.
Right. They can find me on, if they're on Facebook, like I understand 2 billion people are on this planet, or 3 billion. They can find me. They can find me on there under Dr. Bruce Koloski, or just Bruce E. Koloski is my Facebook handle. They can reach me through there. They can message me. My website is drkoloski.com, drkaloski.com. And my email address is drkoloski, again, drkaloski @gmail.com.
So, okay, your website is very interesting. It answers just about any questions that anybody could have. Um, and this has been very informational. I've learned a lot from this. Really enjoyed having you as a guest.
I've
Um,
enjoyed being your guest.
and I think that's, nursing is, after 45 years, I don't want to say I'm burned out, but I'm not enjoying it as much. That's why I became a hospital clown.
Hmm.
And then I found that hypnosis was actually doing nursing in a different way. Um, and I've been able to affect a lot more people. Uh,
Yeah, I can't do as many clients as I could do years ago when I was just doing behavioral and habit control, because these are the past life regression is a longer session, and it's
right.
a more labor intensive. So where I could see 20 people a day with weight loss and smoking. I'm lucky if I can get through like 3 or 4 a day with something like this, because it is labor intensive, longer sessions.
So, well, this has been a real pleasure to have you today, Bruce. I've enjoyed this immensely, and I think our viewers did too. Um,
Thank you for having
and
me.
I want to thank you for being on the show today. It's been real, and I really enjoyed it.
I had a great
So,
time. Thank you
all
so
right,
much.
all right. Thank you very much. You take care. Stay
Bye bye.
healthy. Bye bye.
This has been The Holistic Nurse with host Peggy Smith. Tune in each week where you're encouraged to send in questions and receive private responses and suggestions if appropriate. Thursdays, noon Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network.